It is 5 p.m. here in Accra, Ghana. Hello, good evening, and welcome to Starr today here on Starr 103.5 FM. And coming up this evening, Minority in Parliament gives government 24-hour ultimatum to clear over 180 containers of essential medical supplies from Global Fund stuck at the port as it reveals the fund allocated, that is $2 million for payment of duties. Government needs to account for that.
Mr. President and your Vice President, right to healthcare is enshrined in the 1992 Constitution, and which you should not continue to disgrace Ghana like you continue to do. It is our expectation that within the next 24 hours, we must hear something positive with regards to the clearing of the containers containing the drugs from the port.
We'll also hear from the minority in the bulletin who say they remain unopposed to legislation seeking to bind future governments to the government's free senior high school policy, but maintains implementation would have to be re-looked at.
So because we are not opposed to the policy, we cannot be opposed to the proposed bill seeking to secure the future of the policy. Well, yes, if government were to bring a bill before Parliament, as it has indicated, we would have no challenge supporting such a bill.
We'll also hear from an educationist who says government's move is an exercise in futility.
I mean, to think that you can put a free SHS into a law and that it cannot be reviewed, it's like, children playing games. So, I mean, they can try it and let's see what happens. So, I mean, I don't know why they want to engage in this future exercise.
And on the election hub this evening, Asante Hino Tumfose to the second admonishes Vice President Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia to be clear in his political campaign communication to the understanding of Ghanaians as the NPP flag bearer draws curtains on his 3-day Ashanti regional tour. In business this evening, inflation falls to lowest in 26 months as Ghana Statistical Service reveals the yearly change in prices of goods and services in May 2024 slowed down for the second consecutive month to 23.1%.
Prices of goods and services between May 2023 and May 2024 went up by 23.1%. This shows a slowdown in the year-on-year inflation relative to the figure that was recorded in April 2024, as the rate of inflation for April 2024 stood at 25.0.
We have details of these stories, including the latest in the world of sports, all coming up in the next 90 minutes. So do stay with us right here on Starr today on Starr 103.5 FM.
Starr News is coming to you live on Ultimate 106.9 FM in Kumasi, Empire 102.7 FM in Takrady, Zeps 95.9 FM in Zebila, Nissim 100.1 FM in Lamshao, My Star Radio in the USA. Also live on Facebook on Starr 103.5 FM and on starfm.com.gh around the world. This is Starr 103.5 FM. Starr News. Informed, in depth, in touch.
Grateful for your company this evening and welcome aboard Ghana's most comprehensive news analysis program Starr today here on Starr 103.5 FM. Tonight, as always, we're live on social media. We're live on Facebook, so you can just log on to facebook.com/Starr 103.5 FM and be a part of it. You can share the link and make sure that others also benefit from what we are discussing this evening. You can also add your thoughts, your comments, your views and contributions to the stories that we'll be tackling. And you can send all of those to all our WhatsApp number 0552 880-216 0552 880-216. I am Joshua Kodjo Mensah. Let's get into the details now. And the minority in Parliament has waded into the controversies surrounding the clearing of over 180 containers of essential medical supplies at the port. The supplies from the Global Fund have been stuck at the port for more than a year, resulting in a threat from the fund to halt further shipments to Ghana. The development has generated a back and forth between the CSOs in health and government, with the government arguing the consignment contains only mosquito nets. Addressing the media in Parliament after meeting officials of the Global Fund, Minority spokesperson on health, Mensah, questioned how an amount of $2 million allocated for the clearance of the supplies by the fund was used. The Jaboso MP further charged government to get the goods cleared regardless of the contents, since the supplies were based on a request from government, describing the development as an international embarrassment.
It is quite disheartening to hear that foreign donors put huge sums of monies together and decide to give us grants. They buy commodities, drugs for Ghana. It is transported from the country of origin, it gets to Ghana, and these drugs are kept at our ports for more than a year without clearing them to put to good use for the benefit of the citizens. If you could recall, since last year, Global Fund shipped drugs in excess of about $45 million. And as I speak to you, we still have not less than 182 containers at the port. Don't forget that these drugs have lifespan, and some of them are expiring. I knew, and I've always known, that this government is irresponsible, but I didn't know this level of irresponsibility. This level of irresponsibility is unprecedented, to say the least. And it will shock you to know that even when Global Fund was shipping these commodities to Ghana, they added something for clearing. And per my calculation, they added not less than $2 million. And Ghana government gets back to them, and he tells them that, look, we have increased our port charges, and therefore, the money you have given us is not enough to clear these commodities from the port. Who does this? Who does this? And this services or grant has taken place since 2002 till now. We have cycles, and we are now in our 7th cycle. And the 7th cycle alone, we are benefiting not less than $248 million and an additional $100 million. Even the counterpart funding we are supposed to pay. And this counterpart funding, it is not money that must be paid to Global Fund. It is show me evidence of procurement. Whatever you need, 15% of the money I'm giving you. So the 15% of the 248, go and buy whatever you need as a country and come and show me the evidence, and I'll continue to give you whatever you need. And even with that counterpart funding, it's tug of war. As I speak to you now, we are owing in excess of $33 million. And what shocks me is that in the 2023 National Health Insurance Formula, an allocation of not less than 80 million Ghana cedis was made to that effect. 80 million Ghana cedis was made, and I have in my hands a copy of the National Health Insurance Formula for 2023. So, I don't know. I'm simply confused about this whole matter. And anytime any consignment takes off from its country of origin, notice are given to the recipients, especially with the Ministry of Health. So, once the consignment takes off from its country of origin, then the processes starts. They kick in. If you are responsible, whether you waive the taxes and duties, and these taxes and duties can simply be waived by the Ministry of Finance and be brought back to Parliament for ratification. And we do it all the time. In fact, we even do it for hotels in this country, hotels. Why can't we waive taxes and duties on medication to save the lives of people? And today, we are told that now those taxes have been waived, but there are demurrages. The taxes have been waived, but now Ghana is supposed to pay about 7 million Ghana cedis for demurrages. So to who? So we could have waived these taxes and duties about a year ago, and we didn't do that. And now we've incurred demurrages and we have to go and pay about 7 million Ghana cedis, for which reason these containers are still kept at the ports. With the greatest respect to the president and his vice president, this country is not for them. This country is governed by the taxpayers' money, and the taxpayers' money must be put to judicious use. And with immediate effect, the president and his vice must make sure that these drugs are cleared from the port to save lives in this country. We have spoken about this same issue not less than 3 or 4 times. If you are in a jurisdiction, you are in a country where even stakeholders in the governance, such as members of parliament, raise issues for more than a year, 6 months, 5 months, a year, and government deliberately refuses to at least respond to those pertinent issues, then we have a big problem as a country. We have a very big problem. If at this point in time, government cannot respond to clearing medications for the citizens, can you imagine as a country if we decide, may God forbid, to vote for this government again to continue? Then I don't know what will happen to us as a country. May God forbid. I don't know if at this point in time, in an election year, everybody is speaking about this issue, because it's quite unconscionable, to say the least, that somebody dashes you money, dashes you medications, just go and clear it for the use of your citizens. You say, what? Nothing, absolutely nothing can justify this incompetence. And to tell you the truth, I was part of the delegation to WHA, and it was an embarrassing scene. We were embarrassed. It came up in 3 side meetings. In all the meetings, we bowed our heads in shame. It's an international embarrassment. And so, we are calling on the president, his vice president. Ghanaians are suffering. And these same commodities, we are running out of stock. Ghana Medical Association have spoken that very soon we will run out of stock of most of these commodities. And therefore, Mr. President and your vice president, at least the right to health care is enshrined in the 1992 Constitution, and which you should not continue to disgrace Ghana like you continue to do. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is our expectation that within the next 24 hours, we must hear something positive with regards to the clearing of the containers containing the drugs from the port.
So you heard that the Dwaboso MP, Kwabena Mensah Kando, he's also the ranking member on the Health Committee and also the minority spokesperson on health. And yesterday we had an extensive conversation on this particular development. We are told by the Ministry of Health that latest by next week Tuesday, we should have the issues or the containers at the ports cleared. That's the information that we do have from the Ministry of Health on this particular one, even though they maintain that the containers do not contain essential drugs, but rather they do contain mosquito nets. And also, we'll be waiting from now till next week, Tuesday, to get to know exactly what is done. But the minority says within 24 hours, they want to hear from the government. They want government to make some commitment towards clearing those containers at the ports. But let's take a bit longer in Parliament, still with the minority, this time around talking about education, because they say they are not opposed to a legislation seeking to bind future governments to the MPP government's free senior high school policy, but they maintain the implementation would have to be relooked at. The Free Senior High School Bill is part of a number of legislations expected to be considered by Parliament during the 3rd meeting of the 4th session of the 8th Parliament. Majority Leader Alexander Kwamena Penyomakin, addressing the media in Parliament yesterday, argued such a legal backing for the policy will ensure it becomes a right for every qualified Ghanaian.
That you cannot enforce. You cannot claim rights to those provisions. The fact that they are there does not mean that you can apply to the court to enforce those rights. They are merely, should I use merely? They are aspirational. Now, when it gets to a point that a government lifts it up to give life to it, there's a need to enact a law to regulate same. And in doing so, it should have been given life. Then the lawyers will say now it has become justiciable in the sense that a court of law can rely on it to make certain orders.
So that's the majority leader, Alexander Penyomakin. But this has been met with some criticism, with education think tank African Education Watch describing the move as unnecessary. Now, they cite Section 3 of the Pre-Tertiary Education Act 2020 Act 1049, which states that secondary school in its different forms, including TVET, shall be free and accessible to all eligible candidates as proof of an already existing legislation. Senior Programs Officer Divine Pay spoke to Lily Mohammed on the Star Midday News.
That's what I said, that yes, if they want to proceed from the fact that they want to increase the scope of what we already have in the Pre-Tertiary Education Act, that is fine, where it will encapsulate views that have been emerging on how to promote efficiency of the program. That's fine. There's nothing wrong to introduce a law to promote efficiency. That's what they must be mindful of. So that is the premise that they have to proceed from. Not to say a future government to cancel, so let's legislate, because there's already a legislation that makes it clear. So the idea should be that there are several proposals from different angles, from civil society organizations, from the academia, from the media, faith-based organizations, on how we can promote efficiency in the first-year high school policy implementation. That should be the path we should be proceeding for. And in that, when we are doing that, we take into consideration all the views that have been coming so far. And it should also be that we have enacted it, because one thing we have to also be mindful that government has always been opposing the majority of the views that are becoming on board to reform the policy. So probably government may even want to legislate and ensure that some of these proposals, like cost sharing or targeting, government wants to legislate so that there will not be a way to ensure that we target it. Government should not use the legislation to close the window on some of these proposals, because I know government has been opposing some of these recommendations you say we have been making. If government has been opposing them and then probably take a step to legislate and then close the window for them to consider some of these options, it will be very bad. So it's also critical that if government wants to proceed on the premise that they want to make the policy efficient, and therefore they want to pass a law that expands the scope of what we already have in the Pre-Tertiary Education Act, then it must also be inclusive enough, and then so participatory must be very broad, that we will ensure that at the end of the day, what we are having in the Act, we would have reflected the broader view of majority of Ghanaians.
Now, do you foresee a review of the policy as spelled out by the IMF report?
Well, if government says they will not review, but probably if what they are trying to intend would be an opportunity for them to review, that is welcome, because for us, that's always been the case that there's a need for a review, but government says no. If it is not broken, there's no need to fix it. But we all know that somehow the policy is broken and there's a need to fix it. So I think that if they are thinking of an act, that's what I'm saying. The act should not be that we are preventing a future government from stopping it or cancelling it. It should be from the mindset that there's a need to review, and we can use the opportunity of the act or the bill that we want to introduce to smoothen the rough edges that will make it more efficient.
You heard Senior Programs Officer at EduWatch, Divine Pay there. We're able to speak to Dr. Clement Park from the minority, as well as Charles Aheto Chegan, former Director General of the Ghana Education Service. Unfortunately, our calls have gone unanswered. As and when we are able to raise them, we'll definitely bring them on board and have a conversation with them on this. But you can also let me know exactly your thoughts on this particular move by the government to have a legislation to make free senior high school binding on the next government or administration. What are your thoughts on that? Is it necessary? Do we need that? Let me know in our comment box on Facebook. Alternatively, you can send that to our WhatsApp number 0552 880 216. This is Starr today here on Starr 103.5 FM. Stay with me.
Starr today, first, fast, and credible.
You're still listening to Start Today here on Star 103.5 FM. On Election Hub this evening, we are still focusing on the NPP flag bearers campaign in the Ashanti region, and the Asantehene Tumfose to the second has counselled Vice President Dr. Mamadou Bawumia to be clear in his political campaign communication. This, he believes, will win or can win the heart of Ghanaians in the upcoming 7th December 2024 presidential and parliamentary elections. The New Patriotic Party national campaign team, led by the national chairman, Stephen Ayesun team, flag bearer of the party, Dr. Mamadou Bawumia, Kennedy Japan, among others, today paid a courtesy call on the Asantehene Otumfose to the second at the Mensah Palace in Kumasi. Dr. Bawumia, who used the opportunity to share his vision statement to the Kumasi Traditional Council, justified why the traditional leaders must rally behind him, also highlighted his vision on transforming the country's railway transport system for industrial and other business growth.
Sure, Ghana, Yaye Jumano, Bibri, but ye knew a big Bibri, Waha, just a ye. Yamea dum ena, maybe ye o mampenia, Niama Bibri, Waha, Miss Peseme ye, make me the caho, nem puntu no eba. The Edama Kumano Supani, ye railway system, wa Ghana. Ushe Maimbia. Rail a very important piece of infrastructure. Mine na a bit tumpono. Railway, very important. But we share Ghana ha ye war mineral deposits baby. At the whole gold war bauxite war iron ore war lithium war baby. But ye be exploitis our mineral resources no really newa untimi fa trucks and fasa minerals see all the time. And in many countries, a timia ye rail no. Yamia dom na misubet na hoa, akonia kese no soa. Misumefa kwine. Said the other countries are no. Yes, you ever fa kwine. I'm a private sector. Aba abekayan ho na ye railway no. Ewo Ghana ha. And no na ebe buayen. Minim say ye buankra port. Ye akoso. But rail ni hoa. Ni benefit no emba. So
you heard Dr. Bawumia speaking in Kumasi, basically touting his vision for the rail system. Well, he also said he intends to transform the country's energy generation dependency on crude oil and gas to solar to reduce energy costs in the country for domestic and industrial use.
Me pese ye power generation system no wa Ghana. And ne ye tuesika e di cra oil and the gas. Na generative power ne boa kosoro na electricity bill so akosoro enti mema adwene say wadahuma nana me pese Ghana sesa ye moving from oil and gas na ye call solar power no na I know ebeboa yen ene solar power no ewie nyame na edi che yen enti me pese ye ha na solar power no na the 2,000 megawatts of solar power, more than half your consumption. Abaka akosombo ho na the cost of electricity a bit down by at least 50%. A bit down now your businesses so it me are your competitive kakra.
So after highlighting this vision, the Asantehene, after listening to highlights of Dr. Bawumia's campaign message, encouraged him to be clear in his communication. He also advised his internal campaign team members not to sabotage his vision to enable them achieve their aim in the upcoming elections.
And then, Okasa wakan niema sineni so unyakwane nyamelo no ne yeboano no oba obeye de amagana man Ghana man e hwese ebenya oman betumpon na akoso amaye nyinara dan ya menua na adodankwa wo mu maye bi adru ba bi ne sesei ebesi ame asa to aba de ohunu ye nti wo fa se be ye na ba de akire no eno na adru so nei wo gidi a wonya wo mu se obetimi aboa na ma waye na adwuma Wajidia wonya wo musa mpaso wotetewa dabi won so betumi aba beto aso eno na adru ho ne nya ne so obema Ghana fo hu de waka na he obema Ghana fo nyina te ase ne ehu sa mpasa se wo mudi na chi a ba obetumi aye nsakra ya magana akoso once a sign, twice yes, February and the Magana Funina and one to bus in church, the old Mumbiante. The old church in Mensah and Pan Yame Buanagana, now Yakwan Badia. And so Bayamagana, Yaman. I bonnet a Baman. The Moye, a party for a fin so epic, baby. And one no war pub and on our so person once we hear more natures, I would the army at ya see ye. One more cry, ye knew of a cry, church, me and Tiasi. Near Hunusa and Passe. Say you knew what crowd, the walking dear. And Passy a boa, who bow be in ye. As you mammy, said will be anywhere. When you know, will be any bit me, I have a coin free and Puano could see Pagada Crocrada. We have been will be able to us, we will be able to us. It is now one and I could for my head dream. And when they who the Akem when they catch a gun for said, Mensume bar, Mensume to us what could do say. Manipan who say, wouldn't him say Hannah Akemo, Nanso Mensume bar may we and it's our own bejuadi. We and it's our in its all bow bay. Now, all father say, ya, and the may badia, Rebecca said, and they be at Yakem. And Pibon never Barman. Between the Equi, Obaqua Prague, or Pim said, Busumi do me no better aban. Then in and Pibon never Barman. Nipper didn't change to a canon, year 2 4 no. Woman inquires, who the end of open, name the Bebuama, a year. Man, no quay be beach, ya, no much, no man.
So you heard there Santino Tumfo say to the advice and Dr. Baumia. Right, so let's get back to our earlier story on education and about government introducing the legislation to make free senior high school binding on successive governments. Let's get on the phone lines now and speak to the Deputy Ranking on the Education Committee of Parliament. He's also the Member of Parliament for the Good People of Blitzer South, Dr. Clement Park. Doc, good evening. Welcome to Starr today.
Yes, good evening to you and good evening to our listeners.
Fantastic. So, Doc, in the first place, looking at free senior high school, the policy, do we need legislation to make it binding?
Well, what I know is that free senior high school is being implemented based on a policy that we believe is born out of the Constitution. As NDC, we've always held the position that, in fact, we started the implementation of the free senior high school in 2015. The current variant is a variant introduced by the current government. We have the firm belief that the policy is a good policy. And we have said time without number, as our flag bearer has done, that the issue we have is with the implementation, the way it is being done. And I think every Ghanaian listening to me would agree that the policy is poorly implemented. We know of the challenges to do with inadequate, sometimes poor quality food. We know of the issue to do with the erratic academic calendar, where there is no certainty about how long the students are going to stay in school before they come home and how long they will stay at home before going back to school. We know of the challenges of inadequate academic and residential space, particularly so with the increase in numbers because of where the cutoff has been extended to. So our concern has always been the implementation. Consequently, we have no challenge at all supporting any legislation that is seeking, quote unquote, to quote the majority leader, to make the free senior school binding on future governments. And we believe we are going to be the next government. And so we don't have a problem supporting such legislation. We have said we want to address the challenges in consultation with stakeholders to make the program better in terms of its implementation. So we have no problem supporting legislation with regards to the free senior high school policy.
Right. So I'll come to exactly what your government, the NDC, if voted into office, would do differently with this policy. Because one of the fears of the government is that, well, you would just come and then scrap it. But let's look at the policy as it is. Have you seen any policy framework for the free SHS that we are told that would be brought before Parliament soon?
Well, Ghanaians should be rest assured that the NDC would not cancel free senior high schools. We have said, and we would say again, we started the implementation of the policy. We know by the Constitution, which in fact was the processes towards the formulation and birthing of the 1992 Constitution, if we want to go back into history, was actually boycotted by the precursors of the current NPP government. So they don't have any more rights to the free senior high school policy than we do. And indeed, there was another political party that actually captured that in its manifesto before the NPP thought of doing that, called the PNC. So let nobody be deceived. Nobody is going to cancel free senior high school. We only want to address the implementation challenges to make it better.
So what would your administration do differently from what we are seeing currently with regards to the program?
Well, our flag bearer, John Abani Mama, has been very clear in stating that whilst we have some ideas of our own about what we will do, we believe that the nature of the policy and what we expect it to deliver requires a holistic approach. And that holistic approach would be manifested in bringing all stakeholders together around a table to assess the program so far, so collectively we can identify the challenges and then look at how we can address them, not just to make the program sustainable, but also to make it efficient. And so we have spoken, for example, that if we had our choice, we would change the current arrangements that say that the food that should go to feed our students ought to be supplied by suppliers contracted by the Ghana Buffer Stock Food Company. We will eliminate the middleman role that the Buffer Stock Food Company is playing. The feeding grants would go directly to the institutions. They should find their own suppliers to supply them their food needs based on the catchment areas in which they are. And we believe if we were to do this, it will remove the tendency of unscrupulous buffer stock food suppliers to shortchange some of the schools where they have to supply 80 bags of rice, they go and supply 40 bags. Situations like that, where we know of instances where some have also supplied expired food items and we've infested beans and flour. Mm-hmm. We've also talked about reinstating the PTAs to play their traditional role the way they used to. We have also talked about including private schools in the delivery of the policy. And we've talked about completing uncompleted structures and adding new structures to create enough space so that the obnoxious double track system, which is still in play, will become a thing of the past. So we have floated some of these ideas on our own, but we believe that as a national policy, there are other stakeholders who can also contribute ideas. And that is why John Mama has said that within the first 100 days of taking over the reins of governance of this country, he will constitute a national stakeholders forum to look at the policy in its current form with regard to the implementation challenges, and then we will come together on how we are going to address them to ensure that the program delivers the maximum output that we all expect.
So, as it stands now, are you aware when exactly this particular bill will come before the House?
Well, we don't know, and that is why we have said, in principle, we are not opposed to it.
Right.
But at the same time, we have not seen it, so we don't know the context.
Okay.
But because we are in support of the policy and we believe that we can even address the implementation challenges to make it better, we obviously cannot be opposed to a bill that is being proposed. Even once we haven't seen it, in principle, we can't be opposed to a policy that is being proposed, quote unquote, ostensibly, to ensure that Free Senior High School continues to thrive and exist.
Right. And so, what do you say then to people who say, well, there is no need for this because at the end of the day, Section 3 of the Pre-Tertiary Education Act 2020, Act 1049 specifically, deals with it already. So there is no need to have another legislation before it can be binding.
Well, that is their opinion. We are in opposition. It is the executive that has the mandate to propose bills to become acts of parliament and law if and when those bills border on the use of resources from the consolidated fund. And so once they have decided that this is the way to go, we have no challenges at all because we are not opposed to the policy and we can't be opposed to a bill that they say seeks to secure its future.
All right. Very well. Well, Doc, thank you so much, and we'll await the introduction of that bill to Parliament, and we'll see how it all boils down. Thank you so much.
Very well.
Right, so that's Dr. Clement Apak. He is the Member of Parliament for Bulisa South. He's also the Deputy Ranking on the Education Committee of Parliament. This is Starr today on Starr 103.5 FM. When we return from this break, we were telling you about a rather sad incident that happened in Kaswa.
Starr today, first, fast, and credible.
So concerns surrounding sexual and gender-based violence have taken the center stage once more following the recent incidents between a woman believed to be in level 200 and her partner, leaving the woman dead and her partner battling for his life. Now, the incident, which reportedly happened in Kaswa on June 11, after the deceased discovered that her lover had brought another woman to his home. Enraged and heartbroken, she confronted him, leading to a violent altercation. Now, reports indicate that in the heat of the moment, the couple stabbed each other, resulting in fatal injuries for the woman and severe injuries for the man. Now, the woman succumbed to her wounds while her lover remains in critical condition. Now, it raises more questions about the canker of sexual and gender-based violence and its prevalence in society despite efforts to eradicate the phenomenon. And we'll be getting on the phone lines shortly to engage the Country Director for Action Aid Ghana, John and Co, because they have been doing some work on sexual and gender-based violence, the triggers and the advocacy, basically, to stem that tide. But let me quickly go on Facebook because some of you have already been commenting on this particular matter. The issue, when posted on our Facebook page, a lot of you have already reacted to the story, and let me read some of the comments that you have posted on Facebook. Over 232 comments we have right now on Facebook. And Irama Kwansa says, toxicity. Think News says, I have the videos and it's sad. The society now cares about taking videos of people instead of helping them. Evangelist JMP Asa says, God knows why he asked that we wait till marriage before we offer our bodies to our partners. It is the pain of feeling used by another that leads to all these hyperbolic altercations. Well, let's get on the phone lines now and get some answers to these staggering questions. John Nko is the Country Director for Action Aid Ghana. He's joining me on the phone lines now. John, thank you so much for joining me this evening.
Thank you very much, Joshua, and it's always a great pleasure to be talking to your medium, Starr FM, and speaking to your audience.
Great. But unfortunately, today we have to talk about this sad incident involving two partners. one stabbed to death, the other one battling for his life, and the concerns about sexual and gender-based violence. I know that as a country, we've been doing a lot of advocacy surrounding that. Your outfit, Action Aid Ghana, has been doing a lot of advocacy around sexual and gender-based violence and all of that. So why is it still prevalent?
Thank you very much. I think that if you look at current statistics globally, particularly the UN Women's Gender Report of 2023, just of recent origin, the statistics indicate that 245 million women and girls continue to face physical or, if you like, sexual violence from their intimate partners each year. And so what that means is it lays the context of what we are talking about. And in Ghana, the statistics is further staggering, where we have about 24.5 women between the ages of 15 to 49 years experiencing intimate partner violence and, if you like, sexual violence at least once in their lifetime. And so the context is very real. And it's for this reason that ActionAid has been working in more collaboratively and in building partnership with women-led organizations such as the Net Right, WILDA, and currently we are implementing the transformative action for gender equality funded by the European Union, where we are bringing to the fore issues of abusive marriages, we are addressing issues of domestic violence, if you like, forced marriage, particularly in the northern part of this country, and intimate partner violence. We have even moved ahead to start working with community champions and traditional authorities in dealing with issues of homicide. And if you talk of homicide, it is a kind of intimate partner violence or gender-based violence, usually in the domestic setting, that unfortunately lead to the loss of life. And if you look at Action Aid mission, wherein we are working with all shapes and its like, particularly the vulnerable people of Ghana in 45 countries, to address issues of poverty and to ensure that community people recognize the power within them to create change by themselves in their families and communities. We work for a fair, sustainable world in which everybody enjoys the right of dignity and freedom from poverty. And therefore, our work is more at the community level, and we have structures set as compacts that pick up early warning signals to ensure that violent situations at the intimate or partner level do not escalate to the highest level, and that is what we do.
And so, from the work that you do on the grounds, what have you identified as the triggers for acts like these?
Very well, thank you. I think that it's increasingly important to underscore a number of points. First, we currently are operating in a cultural context where it's understood that we are in a paternal society in many cases, where the woman is socialized to believe that for you to qualify as a woman in our context, you should have the shock absorbers to entertain your abusive husband because of your children and also because of the community standards that even your mothers would say that, look, we have all gone through it. And therefore, the safeguards in the community level is left with only government or state institutions such as DOCSU and the Department of Social Welfare. And that creates a complex situation where the support of NGOs and development organizations like ActionAid Ghana and even like Net Right, Abantu for Development, and others are merely not penetrating deep enough to address that. Secondly, there are also issues of economic reality where the cultural context continue to say, as a woman, you are going to live at the behest of your husband. And so what is important is for you to be above. Their livelihoods are not usually secure. Most of them don't have employable opportunities. And therefore, with the economic situation, as we currently are experiencing, is becoming hard, then responsive from the women in terms of demand for more money for even the domestic setting is met with some form of violence. It could be emotional, it could be physical, and that is what continues to remain the stumbling blocks, hampering state institutions' work, hampering development organizations like us, working to ensure that we are launching a devastating blow over gender-based violence. And I think that the media in this context is playing a critical role, and we can have more opportunities to break down into specific some of the things that we have done under the transformative impact for gender equality funded by the EU.
So clearly, poverty is a factor. We are seeing cultural norms also being a factor, and then some level of patriarchy in the system also contributing to all of this. But I'm sure that in the coming days, we'll have more conversations on these developments. But we are grateful for your time this evening, John.
Fantastic. And to end, let me say that the Department of DOSU under the Ghana Police Service,
right,
Department of Cooperatives, and if you like, ActionAid is implementing the Survivor Center approach, where we have built survivor centers in the Upper West region, which is one of the regions, currently recording a lot of violence against women issues, including forced marriages. And the center is working collaboratively with the decentralized structures of government to address domestic violence in the Upper West region, and we hope to scale this across the country.
Very well. Very well. Thank you so much, John, for your time this evening. That's John Nko. He is the country director for ActionAid Ghana, speaking to us on this rather unfortunate incident in Kaswa, where two partners got into an altercation. One is dead, the other one is battling for his life. And we are talking broadly about sexual and gender-based violence and where all of this is erupting from. But clearly, away from that, there's news coming in. Mensah East, the parliamentary candidate who made some suggestions to minors to discipline military officers who come and prevent them from working. We are picking information that he's been arrested, and there's been developments to that. Kodjo has joined me in studio. What do we know?
So, Joshua, indeed, people were waiting for such a thing to happen. Our checks from the region actually shows that this happened in the Western region. So he was invited to the regional command. When he was invited, he was asked to put down a caution statement by the police. So basically, there's a caution statement that shows that the police intends to charge him for something of some sort. And we also told that someone in the region, a highly placed person, also went in to seek bail for him. So yes, indeed, he's been formally invited by the police to answer and explain the circumstances leading to his comments. What we know is that he has not been held behind counter or in cell by the police,
right,
but he has been given a police inquiry bail and been asked to go, and then when the police need or desire him to answer or provide further particulars, he would come back. So, George, that's the latest in there. The police have started the processes, as many have called for. And as always, just as we took this issue from the onset, we would keep listeners updated as to what the next line of action would be for the Ghana Police Service. Definitely.
So that's the news coming in. The MPP parliamentary candidates for Mensah East, who made some very interesting comments to minors. The police has taken interest in the matter. We know the Ghana forces also released a statement earlier condemning the comments. Now the police have also taken interest. Adam will be staking, he will stay a bit longer with me because we are going to break down some figures for you with regards to inflation. But let me tell you about this indefinite strike by the staff of the National Identification Authority, because that strike has left a lot of applicants stranded and unable to access essential services. Now, a visit to the headquarters of the NIA revealed that operations have ceased, leaving applicants frustrated and in limbo. Obed Kingaglo has the rest of the story.
The strike, which began on Monday, June 10, 2024, was announced on Sunday, June 8, 2024, by the Public Services Workers Union, citing poor conditions of service and the government's failure to address negotiation delays and institution-specific allowances. The union noted that it had postponed its initial strike notice on March 2024 following intervention of the Minister of Employment and Labour Relations. Despite this, the government's lack of progress in the negotiation process has compelled the union to proceed with industrial action. Bartholomew Amadi, An applicant who turned up at the NIA office to pick up his national ID was greeted with an empty office due to the ongoing strike. Disappointed Bartholomew expressed his distress, highlighting the critical importance of the Ghana card, especially his inability to acquire a SIM card without the Ghana card.
I'm here today to come and take my Ghana ID card. And when I got here, first of all, the security told me they are on strike, so there's no any information. But I decided to make further move and see whether I can have access. And I can see that the skeleton staff inside the office. So I got there. They asked me, what do I want to know? I said, I'm coming to check my Ghana card. Since 2022, that I came and I registered, and they said everything was ready. They printed it, you need to come for it. So I went twice. This was done at the branch, Adenta Market. It was done there. I went there several times. I don't know why they are not giving me. So I decided to leave the car and travel. So after coming back from my journey, I decided to come to see my card. But now they are telling me they are on strike. Right now, I need to have Ghana number. That is one of the networks. But they said you cannot have it unless you have that one. I even met another colleagues there who just arrived, and then they wanted to have it. They said they have to get Ghana card. And these people are from Canada, and they have come to see whether they can get the Ghana card. It's also closed. They said they are on strike. And if I happen to leave without having it, that is disastrous, because you cannot be identified as Ghanaian, if anything. And it is important to have that Ghana card as a nationality in this country.
Although the news team tried to engage the striking workers and management of the authority, our efforts proved futile. For Star News, Obed Kengaglu.
Now, let me do some other stories now. But before then, let me do some of your messages that you've sent in. Teacher Kofi says, no doubt this government cannot just clear donated medical equipment from the port. Indeed, when the wicked rules, the citizens suffer. Aaron Babako Kokomisa says, good evening to you. Fighting corruption requires a comprehensive and strategic approach that targets the root causes of corrupt behavior by increasing transparency and accountability, promoting ethical behavior, and strengthening the rule of law. Societies can make significant strides in combating corruption and promoting good governance. Okay, so now the Cecilia Dapa case is still raging, and lawyers of Patience Butchie, the 18-year-old former house help of Cecilia Abnadapa, have filed a motion at the High Court for an order demanding from the Office of the Special Prosecutor all investigation documents on Cecilia Dapa and her husband. The motion filed today led to the adjournment of court sitting, where Daniel Osei-Kuffour was expected to face further cross-examination. Fortunately, we have on the line EIB's legal affairs correspondent Mutala Inusa to tell us more on this. So Mutala, tell us, how did it all happen in court today?
Well, Joshua, so lawyer of Patience Butchie, the first accused person, in fact, he's been told that he's an 18-year-old lady, were expected to continue with further cross-examination of husband of Madame Cecilia Dapa, Daniel Osei-Kuffour. However, when the case was called before Justice Marie-Louise Simmons, lawyer for Patience Butchie, Georgie Komivi Jochi, indicated to the court that they have filed a motion, and that motion sought to make an order for the Office of the Special Prosecutor to furnish them with all necessary documents. Investigation caution statement they took from Madame Cecilia Dapa when the OSP, as it were, investigated her. All interviews conducted, everything that they had done, OSP has done in relation to the second part of Madame Cecilia Dapa and the husband. They want all those information so that they are able to cross-examine Daniel Osei-Kuffour, who is the husband of Madame Cecilia Dapa, and subsequently Madame Cecilia Dapa herself will also be in court as one of the prosecution witnesses. They need those documents. And in fact, that particular motion that was filed today has been fixed. The return date on that is June 27. So all that they are asking for is an adjournment so that they are able to move that particular motion so that the OSP can furnish them with all these documents that they are asking for. Justice Marie-Louise Simmons looked at the situation and said, look, I will indulge you that opportunity. However, the court would look at the situation if it's possible for lawyers of other accused persons to begin their cross-examination while the time before the motion is taken. So the case, as we speak, has been adjourned to June 18th. And June 18th, the court will make a determination as to which of the accused persons should cross-examine Daniel Osei while they await for June 27th, when that particular motion will be moved for a determination to be made as to whether or not the court will compel the OSP to furnish the accused persons with all those documents that they are requesting. But what is clear is that Patient Boshi, the 18-year-old former House Help, Madam Sisi Dianapa, and her lawyers have filed a motion, and that motion seeks to compel the Office of the Special Prosecutor to furnish them with all investigation documents, including caution statement, interviews, interrogations, and investigation, especially so about how much was discovered in the home of Madam Sisi Dianapa and her husband.
Quite interesting. But who were in court today?
Of course. So the accused persons, 7 of them, all of them were present in court. And Daniel Osei, the husband of Madam Sisi Dianapa, of course, is in the witness box. He was also present in court today. And the state prosecutors, Christabel Salma Nafuri, who is the Assistant State Attorney, represented the Attorney General. And of course, some of the lawyers of the accused person were also present. And the father of Patience Boshi was also present. Remember that in the initial stages, he was also arrested, but subsequently he was discharged because investigation revealed that he had no role to play. So he was also present in court to lend support to her daughter.
Mutala, thank you so much for the update in court. We're grateful. That's Mutala Inusa. He's EIB Network's legal affairs correspondent. Now let's get into the facts and figures, shall we? And of course, the annual rate at which prices of goods and services is rising has slowed down for the second consecutive month, according to latest figures from the Ghana Statistical Service. The service reveals Ghana's headline inflation for May 2024 fell by 1.9% from the 25% recorded in April 2024 to 23.1% in May, the lowest in 26 months. Now, despite the significant drop in the annual figure, monthly inflation, that is the change in prices of goods and services between April 2024 and May 2024, rose to 3.2%, the highest monthly inflation recorded in 10 months. Now, here is government statistician Professor Samuel Kobneni, who reveals hikes in transport fares drove up the monthly inflation rate.
2024, prices of goods and services between May 2023 and May 2024 went up by 23.1%. This shows a slowdown in the year-on-year inflation relative to the figure that was recorded in April 2024, as the rate of inflation for April 2024 stood at 25.0, coming down from 25.8 in March 2024. So for the second time in a row, we've seen a slowdown in the year-on-year inflation. From a regional perspective, the Upper East region recorded the highest rate of inflation of 35.6%, which is 3 times as high as the rate of inflation that was recorded in the region that recorded the lowest rate of inflation of 10.3%, which is the OT region. From a food and non-food perspective, we saw a 1.0 percentage point difference between food inflation and non-food inflation, with food inflation 22.6% and non-food inflation 23.6%. While we are seeing a decline in food inflation significantly by 4.2 percentage points, we saw a marginal increase in non-food inflation by 0.1 percentage points between April 2024 and May 2024. From a source of inflation perspective, we recorded a 5.1 percentage point difference between inflation for locally produced items, recording the higher value of 24.7%, and inflation for imported items, recording a lower value of 19.6% for the month of May 2024. From a monthly perspective, we've recorded a rate of inflation of 3.2%, which is the highest that we've seen in the last 10 months, increasing from 1.8% in April 2024 to 3.2% in May 2024. The main driver for the month-on-month inflation was transport, which was the only month-on-month inflation for May 2024 that had 2 digits, specifically 10.6% transport inflation for the month of May 2024. Disaggregating from a food and non-food perspective, we recorded a 0.9 percentage point difference, with food inflation 2.7% and non-food inflation 3.6% for the month of May 2024.
So you had the government statistician, Professor Samuel Kobna, and Madam Kodjo was joining me to do a breakdown of the figures for the month. And one of the key things that I'm sure that you would be confused also was the fact that we hear that inflation has declined on one hand, but on the other hand, month on month there is an increase. What is happening? I mean, what are you telling us?
It's climbing up, and that's where I'll start from. Someone just saw me and goes like, Edem, the inflation is coming down, but why is it that we are not seeing prices of goods and services?
I'm not feeling it.
Yes, so it is always key to understand that a drop in inflation is not a drop in the price. Inflation is the rate of change, in the price from between one period and another period. So if we say the inflation for May, it means that between May 2023 and May 2024, the price of goods and services have gone up by 23.1%. However, if you remember last month when I came here, it was 25%. That was the rate of change between the previous 12 months. And so that shows that inflation is slowing down and not necessarily
the
price
is coming
down. So that's the first thing.
Right.
Now, the second thing is where it gets very interesting. In that we are seeing the yearly inflation, annual inflation, slow down. So it's moved from 25.8 to 25.0 to now 23.1.
Which is actually the lowest.
Which is actually the lowest in 26 months. So this means that since somewhere 2022, we've not had any figure as low as 23.1. And that is very interesting.
Right.
However, we are seeing month on month. And based on what I've told you that the annual inflation is the change between 12 months, the month on month will tell you the change between 1 month. So when we pick the month on month, we are seeing that the 3.2% being recorded is the highest in 10 months. So in fact, for March, price of goods and services in March went up by just 0.8%. In April, price of goods and services in April went up by 1.8%. But in May, price of goods and services went up by 3.2%. And that is a very significant jump because it's even more than 2 times the previous, it's about 2 times the previous month's rate.
Right.
And this is very, 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 very disturbing. So, Joshua, that is the first part we need to get. That's the month on month, that is the problem that's happening. And as the government has rightly said, this figure was driven by transportation. And so if you remember, in the late part of April and early part of May, we all were forced to pay some transport fares that were actually till date we do not know whether they've been approved or not, but we are still paying.
If you like, don't pay.
And that has effectively affected our monthly inflation within that period. So, Josh, that's the first part I want to look at. Now, the interesting thing we are seeing is that food inflation is actually slowing down tremendously. Food inflation. And that is a very interesting one here. Because last month, food inflation was at 26.8%. This month, food inflation
No, you mean April.
Sorry, I mean in April, not last month. So in April, So in April, when we got the figures, food inflation across the 12-month period was 26.8%. However, annual food inflation for May fell to 22.6%. And that's a very significant drop. However, when it comes to non-food inflation, the drop was just 0.1%.
Very insignificant.
Sorry, it actually even went up. So it actually moved from 23.5% upward to 23.6%. So this clearly tells you that now we are moving back to the period where our inflation is shifting from being food influenced to being more of non-food influence. And if you look at the month on month, for food inflation was 2.7. For non-food inflation, it was 3.6. So it can tell you that the 3.2 inflation recorded for the month of May was predominantly driven by non-food, which is equally reflected in the transport fares issues that we are looking at.
Right.
However, inflation for imported items still looks a bit low at 19.6%. And one would have thought that considering the way our CD has been behaving against the dollar in the recent months, would that have had affected it by now? Or maybe there will be some kind of lag effect that would probably occur later in the year. So, Josh, this is also another interesting thing we look at. So I'll quickly jump to 2 of my favorite parts and then I leave. The first part is, for food inflation, Eastern region has the highest food inflation Upper East region has the highest non-food inflation. Yeah, and you know, there's a reason why I am emphasizing on the non-food, because we've been talking about probably how maybe the issues in Burkina had probably affected them, but then when it comes to the food inflation, they actually have one of the lowest.
Wow.
Their inflation is more non-food driven.
Okay.
So what it could equally mean is that probably a number of their non-food items come actually from that side. So, George, that is the first thing we look at. Now, also overall inflation on a regional base, because of Upper East high non-food inflation, and as I'm telling you, non-food inflation is beginning to have an effect on our general inflation as opposed to food inflation. Upper East region have the highest regional inflation, and OT region has the lowest at 10.3. Then I'll leave you with my favorite, the items that are making the list. Number 1 is garden egg. And this is it. For the month of May. So, Joshua, you know there are 307 items in the inflation basket. Food takes about 200. I'll get the right figure for you later. Yeah.
But it takes a chunk.
It takes a chunk of it. Then there's the next line that your inflation might be different from mine based on the food items we eat.
Yeah.
So overall food inflation for the month was 2.7%. But some items here have very dangerous monthly inflation. And I'll start with the food ones. So number 1 on the list is garden eggs. If you are somebody who likes garden eggs too, in the month of May, you had to pay close to 20% more than you had paid just for the month of May.
Wow.
And for the whole year, it was 56.3%. So what it means is that in 1 month, you have to pay about a third more of what you would have paid across the entire 12 months. So that's a very interesting thing for garden eggs there. Now, cabbage equally has a very high one with a month-on-month of 8.2, which is relatively high. Then...
And we know why.
Why?
Cabbage.
Why?
We know.
Okay. Pets and related products actually have an interesting one. In the month of May, they went up by 4.7%. And then overall, it's around 49%. Now, the good thing we also see in all of this is that, with the exception of garden egg, no products in the 307 items has an inflation more than 50%. You remember we used to have discussions of inflation over 100%, 90%. This is also indicative that...
When the herrings were misbehaving.
Yes. So now we're having general year inflation of around 50% and lower.
Okay.
However, now the monthly inflations are very, very, very significant. So I'll pick another item. A new car, Joshua. Now, new car has moved from rank number 77 to rank number 7.
70 points.
70 points up the ladder. And in the month of May alone...
but I thought you guys said you didn't have money.
Just in the month of May alone, owning a car would have cost you 12% more.
Wow.
So if you had saved some money in April, and then you decided that it was in May you were going to buy your car, you would have paid 12% more. And that is a very interesting thing.
Okay.
Then, fresh tomatoes. It's been a discussion that has gone on for so long. In the month of May, fresh tomatoes went up by 14.3%. Right. Okra went up by 14.3%. And this one I can testify to it. Now, I am preparing your growth, you have to pick 2 and do it. Cut it into plenty pieces so that...
And then when you are finally consuming it, you do something the Ebers call sisirichia.
You separate it, you take a little of... Yes, I get it. So, yes, that's a very high one.
Okay.
Then yam, 10.5%. So, Josh, as I said, although the items are doing well generally year on year, in the month of May, we've seen some items do over 10%, as much as 20%. That shows that the month of May was really, really an expensive month for the Ghanaian consumer, even though inflation has fallen. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, Adam Kodjo, breaking it down for us always. And now we know garden eggs are they are really making their way on the inflation ladder. But let's get on the phone lines and get some more perspective to this. Research lead at GCB Capital, Courage Buti, has joined me on the phone lines. Now, Courage, thank you so much for joining us. So inflation has fallen by some 1.9 points, but we are seeing month-on-month inflation rise again, similar to what we experienced between the last month's trend. What exactly is your general assessment of this?
Well,
Oh, yes, those are the nuances that don't easily meet the eye. So, yes, inflation is declining as expected, probably at a slower pace than the consensus market outlook and my personal estimate, and that could largely be attributed to the intervening factors around the May print. We've seen the impact of city depreciation. We've seen the hike in transport fares reflect. We've seen also, if you look at it on a month-on-month level, you would see how the transport fare changes have affected transport inflation. You would see how the seasonality for some food staples have affected food prices in general. And you will see the dynamics play out well. So, yes, the year-on-year is looking at a period between last year May and this year May. And base effect is playing a big role. But for the period May this year and in April this year, you can see clearly that the underlying pressures are still very much there, which is just indicative of what circumstances we see currently, the impact of depreciation, the impact of fuel price movements. There is also utility tariff hike that is to take effect from 1st July. Its impact will reflect along the way. And if we do not get a handle on exchange rate, the lag impact and the transmission will ultimately play a role in the outlook for inflation going forward. So year on year is looking good, but there are concerns that need to be addressed clearly.
Now, you have talked about one of those that we are looking at, talking about the increase in utility tariffs that we are to expect in the coming month and all of that. And I want to also find out from you, looking at the depreciation of the city in the last 2 months, I mean, do you think that it will also have an effect on inflation? Because we are seeing a shift from the drivers of inflation moving from the food to the non-food. So with the depreciation of the city and how it's behaved over the past few months, will it have any impact whatsoever?
Again, quite clearly, the year-on-year doesn't tell the full story. Year-on-year, you would have realized non-food inflation increased just marginally. But if you look at it on a month-on-month, you realize that it increased from 1.5% to about 3.4% in a single month. Now, that is quite steep for a month-on-month inflation, and it's a reflection of all of the exchange rate pressures and how it's affecting pricing behaviors. Call it second-round effect, and of course, lag impact. How pricing agents are reflecting these expectations of exchange rate dynamics on general prices going forward. And then you talk about utility tariffs, which is again a reflection of there are two key variables in there: the exchange rate and then the international price of crude oil. Largely, you will see the international price of crude oil has receded over the period, probably April, May. Maybe if you look at it even over Q2, which is what influenced the decision, it's largely a decline from a peak of about $91 per barrel to now just about $82, $81 per barrel levels, really. So that is still a decline. So you would argue that the main driver, again, for the utility tariff adjustment was the exchange rate. And so the longer this lingers, the more it will transmit, it will pass through to headline inflation. I think there is one key thing we must note about the utility tariff adjustment. As much as we're trying to do full cost recovery, if you read the fine text of the decision from PURC, there is some 800 plus million that is supposed to be part of the required revenue to be mobilized in Q2 to cover the expenditures of the bill. That is not reflected in the tariff. That is probably deferred into subsequent quarters. So even if exchange rate behaves, there is a likelihood that in Q3 adjustment, you will see utility tariff going up again because of that cost component that is not reflected, or revenue component that is not yet reflected in the tariff structure.
Quite interesting. Now, I remember the last time we spoke on this platform on inflation, one of the things that we didn't get clarity on was the fact that we didn't know whether the third tranche of the $360 million from the IMF was going to come. But today, you're told by the Finance Ministry that it has reached an MOU with the official creditors, and we expect the IMF money to hit our account soon. That's good news. But then, is that likely to have any form of impact in controlling the inflation as we're seeing it now?
Well, it could, and then that's one of probably many other sources of fund that may flow in. Already, the World Bank has approved some 250 million for us for the Financial Sector Stabilization Fund thing, and then it looks like all is clear for the IMF board to approve our program review now and then disburse 360 million. This disbursement, this completion of second review will mean that there could be additional flows from the World Bank, AFDB, and other multilateral institutions in support, like catalytic funding, which all of which will come along the way. And the positive news effect alone that the program is on track could give investors some comfort and curtail speculation to an extent, right? So all of these are positive. But then it also depends on how people interpret this development and how that feed into their behaviors in terms of what classes of assets they demand and all that. And that's where I think the communication from the Bank of Ghana that reserves are improving, rest assured, we are in control, is important. And that is where the commitment or the expression of commitment from the central government that we will behave well in this election year is quite reassuring. But we need to back it with the hard facts. Right. The figures show that. And when those are happening, then some of the flows can actually ease the sentiment and we could have some sense of stability. So it has the potential, but it also depends on what evidence people see week after week, month after month.
Now, finally, government had an end-of-year projection, 15%. You had your projection, 18%. From looking at how things are going, are we still looking at doing under 20? Do you still think we can do that?
Well, I think under 20 is still possible. How low it could go? Will it get to 17, 18? With all of the dynamics now that we talk about, exchange rate, utility tariff adjustment, transport fare hike, and all of that, I think the pace of decline will be moderated from now on. And so I still expect we'll get sub 20, but I am not sure about the midpoint of the central bank's forecast, which is about 15%. I think we will likely get closer to the upper teens. I will still maintain my forecast. I think it was 17 plus or minus 100 basis points. I will still maintain that probably until towards the end of third quarter to relook at it. But I think sub 20 is still very possible at this pace, especially given that the distortions coming from the Middle East seem to be coming to an end. There seems to be a peace pact on the table, which both sides have kind of agreed to. So I guess it's a matter of time, and then the war in the Middle East will come to an end. That will be positive news for almost all factions. And so I still think that there is a potential for it to come down as these pressures kind of die out.
Right. Courage, thank you so much for your time this evening.
My pleasure.
Great. So that's Courage Buti. He's a lead researcher at GCB Capital, speaking to us on the inflation figures, but still sticking a bit longer with business stories. The Consumer Protection Agency is cautioning the public against the influx of substandard and inferior paint on the market. The agency is alarmed at the increasing number of paints which are not labeled on our markets and causing health issues. Addressing the media, Chief Executive Officer of the Consumer Protection Agency, Kofi Kapito, urged the Ghana Standards Authority and the Environmental Protection Agency to protect the health and safety of the public.
Environmental Protection Agency, the Standard Authority, should make sure that we protect the safety and the health of the Ghanaian. Yes, we have paint manufacturers here in Ghana. We should also make sure that they also don't bring paint into the system that does not have labeling. This is about making sure that if it's labeled, whoever that is going to buy it will be informed. If you have information, you can be a discerning consumer. You might not even like what is in the paint because of your health implications. But if you don't know, and it comes in a drum, and somebody repacks them, that's what they do. They bring them in drums, and they repack them, and they call it the USA paint or American paint. Like I said, no manufacturer would produce anything. And they say, even in Ghana, you can't produce a paint and call it Ghana paint. So I don't understand why countries like that would even do that. It is Ghanaians, we need to know exactly what, who, and where. If you don't know this, it becomes a health issue to us. And what is even scary is it's being rebucketed or repackaged in unscrupulous neighborhoods. Sometimes you walk around and you see somebody mixing paint. You should be an authorized person technically to know how to mix a paint. If you go to the companies that do paint mixing, they do it based on standard by the Standard Authority and the rules of the Environmental Protection Agency. It is scary, it is getting out of control. You go to places like Adaraka or Dona, you see them, they are by the wayside. The question is, what is authority doing about it? You know, a naive consumer who does not know will go and buy this paint before they will say, yeah, it has become a risk. Health-wise, it will cost us more, and everything is not good for the Ghanaian consumer. So this is a precaution, this is a warning, and this is also advice to institutions mandated that they should up and do their job so that the safety of the Ghanaian consumer, when it comes to paint, will be a perfect thing. We all want businesses to try. We are not in business to collapse anybody's business. But we'll make sure that if you do an illegality, we would let the Ghanaian know and let the authorities also know. So basically, that's why we call it this one. Thank you for coming.
You heard Kofi Kapito. He is the executive director of the Consumer Protection Agency. Now, e-commerce and courier service company Glovo exited Ghana in May, citing profitability challenges. However, a team of students from the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology have put their best foot forward to swim against the tide, led by a level 300 student, Abaz Abdul Latif. The innovation UziBox is on a course to rival global giants in the quick commerce industry. Colleague with Ultimate FM, Ivan Hitkot-Fimador, has been interacting with the team.
The dream of Abbas Abdul Latif to build an e-commerce and quick delivery platform started in senior high school when he began purchasing and selling gadgets online.
Back in SHS, I liked online shopping. So me shopping, I got the experience. So to order from China, I realized it's been simple and I have the capacity to do it. So later on, I created my own platform, which was UziBox. That was only e-commerce. So when time was going, we need change. And so we changed our models a little bit, and that's how you see UziBox.
The innovation offers customers a convenient shopping platform for food, pharmaceuticals, grocery, e-commerce and courier services. Latif is possible. UziBox has what it takes to scale the profitability hurdles which drove global giants like Glovo out of the Ghanaian market.
So they are a foreign company. I think maybe some issues or some things imposed on them will be different for we the citizens. So I feel like it will be easier for us to navigate through the system. So we try not to make the same mistakes.
Management of the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology have shown keen interest in supporting the student-led initiative to blossom. Professor James Osei Mensah is Associate Professor with the Department of Agriculture Economics, Agribusiness and Extension.
We are talking about numerous youth who are going to be engaged in the process of delivering the order, in the process of doing the shopping. So to me and to the university, where we celebrate entrepreneurship, where we encourage youth innovativeness, we think that this is a good step in the right direction. And we are very happy that one of a team of students from the university, Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, have been able to come out with this app and is going to contribute to addressing societal needs.
At level 300, Latif's story has become an inspiration for his colleagues and other students, some of whom have begun registering their businesses to sell on the app.
When we were in SHS Form 3, he used to sell drones, cameras and the rest. He was just so much into business and he just loved it. So opening something like this, I'm not surprised.
And then I was the first lady who was able to order food here. And then with the app, it's so easy and convenient to use. And I will soon have my brand and my food on the app too.
What is your brand?
It's called Vittles.
What do you do?
I do pancakes and sandwiches.
Apart from the numerous jobs it creates along the value chain, retail e-commerce sales is projected to hit $7.4 trillion by the year 2025. Latif has high hopes. His business will transcend the borders of Ghana to have a bigger bite of the cherry.
We are looking forward to exit Ghana. Right now we are based in Kumasi. So within 2 to 3 months we are looking to go to Accra and to other capital cities. Then we will move to our francophone countries, Cote d'Ivoire, then to Nigeria, then we can capture the world.
Setbacks, including the untimely death of a team lead, Kingsley Ajaman Banahine, could not deter the team of students from pulling through the app development stage, assembling of delivery riders, and tying in with partner shops towards the successful launch.
I came to the realization that Africans are, in fact, capable of everything that we want to do. I believe in an African solution for an African problem.
The enterprise represents another story of the ingenuity and eagerness of the young Ghanaian to develop commercially viable solutions, create jobs, and make an impact even in a challenging environment. Reporting for Starr News from Kumasi, Ivan Heathcote Fumado, Ultimate FM.
Now let's do some sports news. And Vision FC coach Mensah has credited the team's strong preparation at the start of the season for the qualification into the Ghana Premier League. Vision FC was crowned Division 1 League Zone 3 champions, thereby securing a spot in next season's Premier League. The former House of Folk deputy coach Mensah further revealed that the team's primary objective has always been on the player development and no qualifying for the Ghana Premier League.
It was properly managed preparation that we did from the one. I would say it's all about preparations. Well, when you are into a tournament, you need to prepare very well. It means failure to plan means planning to fail. So we plan very well. I'll talk of the board management, the technical team, and playing body as well. We all had one mind, and there's a motive behind the team, of which the motive is to develop players and then maybe send them to the bigger club outside, and then they reach to the higher stage, playing national teams as well. So we were not having the plan to qualify directly to the Premier.
It wasn't part of the plan this year to qualify.
The team has its own project, of which the project is to develop players to the highest level. So whilst we are during preparations, anything can happen. So in the course of the league, whilst we were playing, we were able to take over a lot of clubs and then beat them all and then get to the highest stage. So when we were on top, we decided not to drop. We came to first position during the week 4. From there to the final day, we were not able to come down. We decided to maintain our position.
So from week 4
yeah,
till the season came to an end, Vision ensured that you stayed up to win this.
We planned that it's either we stay, we maintain our position, or we add up. So we decided not to get back to we fall from our position. That was how everything started.
Head coach of Vision FC, Mensah there. Now, Dreams Football Club have defeated relegated Real Tamale United by an incredible 8-1 in an outstanding game in the Ghana Premier League. The game, which was initially in doubt, as players of RTU threatened a strike over unpaid salary arrears, eventually was honored. Ajanin Boateng scored 5 goals in the game to close in the leading goal scorer of the Ghana Premier League, which will come to an end this weekend with the last round of games. And that's how I wrap up the bulletin right here on Starr 103.5 FM. There's more news for you when you log on to starfm.com.gh. I am Joshua Kodjo Mensah, and on behalf of the entire Komla Duma newsroom, we say thank you for your time this evening. Let's make it a date, same time tomorrow, right here on Simply the Best, Starr 103.5 FM. At 6:30, we bring you Focus on Africa from the BBC. Do have a wonderful evening.